my guest, my special guest is here with me. Elaine, are you with us?
Yes, I'm here.
Oh, wonderful, Elaine. Good to say, good to have the chance to connect with you today, Elaine.
It's lovely to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Hi, Elaine. Very grateful. Just very, very, very happy to see you today, Elaine. Can't hide my joy. So, so here it is. so Elaine is here. So lovely of Elaine to have agreed to this interview with us. She's now living in England, and I think it's morning in England now, Elaine.
Yes, it is. It's 9:30.
Okay, fantastic. So you are starting the day with us.
Yes, lovely.
Then let me just formally introduce you, Elaine, and whatever that formal is. So we are here with Elaine Hamilton Grundy, who's the founder of the Reiki Center and a much respected Reiki master teacher, the author of Reiki Pure and Simple, and the author of Reiki A Path to Freedom. We welcome you to this group, Elaine, today. Thank you for this honor.
Well, thank you very much for inviting me. I was fascinated by that painting. It looks amazing.
Now we're getting back to you, Elaine. Elaine, there's so many things that I would like to ask you, but then there are no words, right? But let me just start with the very basic, because you see, I can't assume that everyone who's watching this knows what's Reiki. And so please, let's start with the fundamental question. What is Reiki and what is healing within the context of Reiki, Elaine? In your perspective.
Okay, from my perspective, because obviously there are many perspectives.
Yeah.
Reiki is simply a Japanese word, and it means universal life force. So when we work with Reiki, we're essentially working with universal life force. So I think you might call it prana, you might call it chi, you might call it awareness, consciousness. Some people might call it God, or kind of that kind of energy that essentially binds us and connects us all together. So some people refer to it as a complementary therapy. Personally, I actually view it as a spiritual practice. So when I am working with Reiki, I am assuming that I am trying to balance my system or the system of whoever it is I'm working with, so that they come into their own unique universal balance that is in harmony with the universe, or in harmony with all that is around us. And so that then provides a kind of container for them to do their own healing and do their own growth and whatever else comes out of that.
You know, Elaine, I love the way you use the container as a metaphor in many of your meditation videos, or the audio videos that you send in via YouTube. You share them on Facebook. Could you just elaborate a little on the container, please?
Well, again, this is a personal viewpoint. So
right. Yes, please. Yes.
Essentially, my own philosophical belief is that we are all connected. We're not separate individuals. However, we do appear in a separate container. Like my container is different from your container, and everybody else has their own little container. And essentially, when we are birthed out, we come in our little body, right? We have a body, we have, and whatever else you think is going on around that. And our experience of this world or this life is expressed through this container. So every single one of us has a different and very unique expression of that. But essentially, we all rise, like we all manifest out of the same consciousness, or the same, the same universe, right? Like none of us are out of this universe.
Yeah.
So to me, the whole purpose of something like Reiki is to help us really align in with what expression comes out of that container, and whether it's art or whether it's writing or whether it's running a top 10 company. I mean, whatever it is, there is a certain expression that we can really come into this world with and stand in our power. And that power requires the container to be very clear and open and clean, so it can get the correct stimulus, and so that it can operate well, like a car. You need to take it in for servicing, and if you don't, then eventually it's going to clog up and it's going to slow down and it's not going to drive so well, or it's just going to stop driving altogether.
Yep. Yes, very well put. Thank you, Elaine. Makes a lot of sense, at least to me, right? And Elaine, I got to ask you something. This thing about Reiki working differently for each and every one of us. Something about that, please. And why there's no necessity to be alarmed, and you get what I mean, right, Elaine?
Well, I think that something, like, if you look at it in terms of a harmonic, so Reiki is working to your own agenda. So what that means is whatever you've got going on in your system. Now, some people, when they first start using Reiki, they might have a lot of aches and pains. Like when my mother first started using Reiki, she was in her 50s. And so she had what I would call 50-year-old issues. It's kind of like a few aches and pains starting, and a few, she had a stomach ulcer, and she had this, blah, 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 blah. Whereas when I first came to Reiki, I was in my 20s. So I had what I would call 20-year-old angst. I was very stressed, and I was not very sure of myself. And so the Reiki essentially works with whatever you've got going on in your body. So for some people, they will notice that Reiki is a very physical energy because they have a lot of physical things that need maintenance. And then for other people, they might notice, no, I don't notice any physical difference, but my mind is clearer, it's calmer, I feel better, I feel more at peace. So, it just depends what our own particular container requires.
Right. Yes. Thank you for that, Elaine. And Elaine, I wanted to talk to you about the Reiki teacher, Reiki master teacher aspect, that avatar of yours, actually. And let me just read to you what I wrote. You're indeed a veteran Reiki master teacher who continues to be active and committed to teaching Reiki. In this amazing pursuit, you would be inevitably coming into a great deal of, a whole world of energies from the various people that you teach, you come into contact with. And I know I'm not exactly requesting you to share techniques. If you want to, please do. But how do you deal with that, Reiki, on a practical? How do you deal with that, Elaine, on a practical basis?
I'm not sure I understand the question. Are you
okay?
Like,
as in every individual with their own energies.
Yeah.
We have our own, like what you said, containers, and we come to you to learn Reiki, to be attuned, to get advice from you, to make Reiki work within our lives in one way or another. And what I'm saying is, in a sense, the shield. How would one, or how would you create a shield for yourself as a protection, from any energies that may not be in tune with yours or mine, so to speak? Is that an appropriate question?
I you know what? It is a question that is asked a lot, and my answer is probably different to what a lot of people would say.
Okay.
My first question would be, what protection from what? Like if I'm really, it really is to do about self-awareness. So if I'm in my container and I know my boundaries, like I know where the edges of my container is, and I know what's in my container, and I know who I am, then when you come along with your container, like, why would I be worried? It's kind of like one cup of water meets another cup of water. That first cup of water doesn't go, you're going to infect me. If that other cup of water happens to have Ribena in it, you're not going to freak out. So I think it comes down to very sturdy boundaries, first of all. And by boundaries, that's not protection, that's clarity. So I have clarity as to what is my stuff, what is your stuff. And that is also different from, you know, like when you come to me with your stuff, and your stuff might be very painful for you. It's like, I can see your pain, but that doesn't mean it's my pain. And it doesn't mean I need to take it from you, because there's also an underlying trust with Reiki that the Reiki will help. It's like, it will give you fuel, it will give you strength, it will give you courage to go on your own journey. And then as you go on your own journey, I mean, for me as a teacher, I get to witness that, which is the most amazing thing as far as I'm concerned, because I get to see human courage and spirit and alignment happening all around me. But I don't think I've done it, and I don't think that it's contagious. You know.
Right. Yeah. Thank you. At the end of the day, we're coming back to the container as well.
It's, you know, it's a great analogy, because it just helps you kind of figure out what's what. And the other thing is, as a container, I don't assume or presume that I know what's best for you in your container. It's like, all I know is what's right for me. And then as I offer that, then people will either resonate with it or not. Yes. And if they don't resonate with it, it doesn't matter. But if they do resonate with it, then there is a certain teacher aspect that can now come into play. Like, I can help people with tips or with examples or with, well, this kind of worked for me, but this worked for me is a really powerful caveat, in that doesn't mean it will work for you. And I'm sure, like with your group, when they're looking at the artists as well, it's exactly the same thing. It's like, what works for one artist doesn't necessarily work for another artist, but it's a tip. And then as that tip, you go try it. And if it works, brilliant. And if it doesn't, then you go look for another art. You know what I mean? It's the same, the very exact same mechanism that no one person, no one teacher, no one guru has the answers for you. All they have is tips.
Yeah. And I appreciate this tip very much. You know, Elaine, I wanted to ask you, there's something that I've been I have been coming across for the past few years, this common habit of judging one's spirituality or level of spirituality. You know, the people tend to say, okay, oh, she's very spiritual. You know, she's more spiritual than her. You get what I'm trying to say, Elaine? It's like this whole business of judging one's ability to be spiritual, the level of spirituality. You know, I just wanted your take on that, because I do hear this quite often. And what I feel it's an absolutely personal thing. And one wouldn't ever know the extent to which one is so-called spiritual, or the nature of that spirituality. What do you say, Elaine, with regards to this?
You know, I think your guest artist said it perfectly when asked the question about, you know, is one type of painting better than others? Like, is abstract more creative than non? And I think it's exactly the same answer. It's each one of us has a unique expression of life. Every single one of us, like, we're all born from life, we will all go back to life. And it's like, in this life that we have in this container, we have this beautiful this opportunity to express whatever it is, whether it's abstract art or whether it's real, you know, still life, or whatever it is. And spirituality is exactly the same, identical, right? Like, we have this ability to burst through as somebody that perhaps is just like the master of the headstand, and we can do it amazingly, or we don't have to eat for a week, or whatever it is, that very aesthetic kind of spirituality, or we have right up the other end where people are able to really participate in kindness or goodness or charity, or, you know, and that's another form of spirituality. And to be honest, I've met some incredibly spiritual business people who just bring in that compassion into their workplace, and that's another type of spirituality, but they're making loads of money. And then for other people, they'd be like, well, that's not spirituality because they're making loads of money. And all this judgment is in my eyes kind of ridiculous. I mean, it's such a waste of your energy to even participate in it. And instead of, you know, spilling out into the world and go and blah, 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 all that, if you come back to yourself and ask yourself the simple question of what is your unique expression in this life, you will be so much more fulfilled than looking outwards for that judgment and fulfillment and whatever. You know, it's like your spiritual journey, and you can do what you want with it, right?
Absolutely.
Simple. Yeah.
It is. But no,
but I know.
Yeah.
Yeah. I do know. I get it all the time. But, you know, to be honest, it's not just spirituality. I mean, like right now, we're just judging left, right, and center with what's happening with COVID, and we're judging the governments, and we're in judgment overload at the moment.
You're right.
It's not just spirituality. It's really about coming. And I think it's really important at this time to come back to our own center and really come into like, what is COVID teaching me, and what am I learning, and what am I going to do about it once I get back out into the world, and how am I going to express myself differently based on what I'm learning right now? I mean, that's the only question that's important.
Absolutely. And actually that is supposed to be my next question for you, actually, Elaine.
Psychic as well, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not surprised, and I will never be surprised. Okay.
I'm joking.
No, I'm serious. So what are your perspectives in living through the pandemic, Elaine? Because you have actually done quite a number of videos about your experiences and perspectives with regards to the current COVID situation on a global level. Is this something that you would like to share with us, Elaine, in this platform, although you have done it on YouTube?
For sure. And again, you know, everybody has to find their own way with this, but to me, it's a huge opportunity, really a huge opportunity. And on many, many different platforms. Like for many of us, we've been forced online, you know, all those dinosaurs amongst us who were like, oh, I don't like online stuff. And many of my teachers have gone online for the first time and are loving it because it's an expansion. And this is always, you know, I've been a big internet fan, as you know, for many years, because my feeling is that the internet is an expanded energetic form of our communication. Because when we're just in the kind of three-dimensional whatever is spatial, then I can only communicate to other people that are in the room with me. But then once I go into the internet, whoom, you know, the whole thing explodes and expands. So from a purely energetic viewpoint, this is a huge energetic expansion, simply because we're forced to go on the internet. And so that's the first thing to kind of bear in mind, is that there is an energy expansion happening because of COVID, because of the fact that we are forced to go global, literally. And there's an opportunity in that. So now I have a lot more people from all over the world joining my course that never used to happen when I was doing it in a room, because they wouldn't fly over from the States, right, to come for a Reiki share, but now they'll call in from the States. So that energetic link, I think, is not to be underestimated. This will have an impact. Yes. The second thing that I think has a huge impact is the forced isolation. So as we're forced into isolation, we're kind of left with our thoughts, right? We're kind of left in effect in a forced meditative environment where we can't escape ourselves. I mean, we could jump into Netflix and lose ourselves for days, and I think a lot of people are doing that, but many more of us are really coming into this opportunity And within that, we're beginning to see, well, actually, you know, given a choice, I quite like working from home, or I quite like not having feeling that I'm obligated to go out all the time, or whatever it is. I think many of us are beginning to realize that the way we had structured our lives before was not optimal. So I'm curious to see whether when we're all let out again, back into the zoo, whether or not we take steps. And I think if any of us do, even if a minuscule proportion of the population changes the way they behave, that's going to have a very profound impact long term as well. So I think that you can look at COVID a lot of different ways, but I think essentially it is an expansion. And this is the way I've been talking about it. I really feel like it's an expansion, and I feel like things are going, it's going to be a real silver lining when this is all over in a year, 2 years, 10 years down the line. We look back at this point as, I mean, I'm terming it like the transition period of the new earth. And that new earth term is simply an Eckhart Tolle term, and lots of other teachers are using it as well. But essentially it's this point whereby we get to reset. And so I'm very curious what happens in the next decade. I think it will have a profound impact, actually.
And we will journey that with you.
Yeah, well, we're all in it, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
we're all in it.
none of us going anywhere, so we'll see what
and we're looking, and I'm looking forward to new techniques, new special, you know, psychically evolved techniques from Elaine. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure that's going to happen. My message is always the same. You know, it's like go within, go within, go within. What's happening inside of you is much more exciting than any psychic technique, really. I mean, it's kind of amazing when you start to spend time in your internal landscape. What it's actually inside of you. It's quite extraordinary. And I'm sure many of you as artists are actually tapping into this already. You know, this is the place we go to create, right?
And you know, there's something, I suddenly have got this thought, which is quite personal, but not really personal. You know, Elaine, you sent me a message about maybe a year ago or so, when I had messaged you, and you had replied to me, and you told me, go within, right? Go within you, and everything is within you. And that was a time when I was also having a certain calling, and that's also linked to the philosophy that Ramana Maharshi advocated silently in his own way. So, is there a connection with Ramana Maharshi's? Do you connect with him blatantly, or is it this happened to be my coincidence?
No, I mean, I think that all these teachers, I mean, for me, I find it easier, perhaps because of my culture, to connect with non-duality teachers like Adyashanti. And just because he kind of speaks a very similar cultural language to me. Sometimes when I'm looking at people like Ramana Maharshi, I can't even pronounce his name, I apologize.
That's okay. That's okay.
It's the concepts are too abstract for me to get my head around. But the philosophy is the same. It's the identical philosophy. And that philosophy is that actually there is only one truth. And it's funny, actually, because I'm writing an article about it right now, just before I jumped on this call. And essentially, there is only one truth born of our own experience. And how we interpret our experience is the stories that we put on top of it. And those stories then create belief structures that then create this and that, and, you know, the whole structure. And essentially the going within is to continue to investigate what your experience is and not what your beliefs or stories or structures are, because those they're limiting. Once you put a structure around something, you limit it. And so it's really this ongoing and eternal search for your truth now, right? And it's continuously changing. So as soon as we try and put a structure on it and we go, right, this is what it is, then we stop that inquiry. And this is where a lot of us get stuck, right? Then we just get stuck. We get stuck in the story and we keep telling the story, and life evolves
Yeah,
and moves
yes.
on. Something like COVID
Same
happens,
story
and
again and again and again. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, we get stuck, and then there's no fluidity, there's no creativity, there's no, you know, it just, everything just stops. And this is kind of what the whole purpose of Reiki is as well, right? Is to kickstart all of that movement again, so that you can continue to move forwards with life, or not even move forwards, because life doesn't move forward, but move with life as it moves. And this is really, I think, the whole purpose of why we do Reiki as well. I think it's very interconnected.
Absolutely, Elaine. It was lovely to hear that viewpoint, because you put it in a very succinct, comprehensive manner, and I thank you for that. And now I want to actually talk about your publications. If I have this book. I'm waiting for the second book because I've ordered it online. So I'll just show this to everyone. This is Elaine's first book, Reiki Pure and Simple, and the second book is Reiki, A Path to Freedom. And unfortunately, it has not arrived here for me, and it will be on the way, and I will share more about it later on. And for now, we have the author, and who is more, I mean, we have the author, so she's the most appropriate person to talk about it currently with us. And Elaine, could you please share with us a bit about your current, your latest book, your second book, that is? Am I right to say that's your second book?
Yes.
Second published book. And
Yes.
perhaps what has been the journey for you in a nutshell, if it's a bit too long for you, the journey from creating Reiki Pure and Simple to creating Reiki A Path to Freedom. Could you just share that with us, please?
Sure. I mean, the first book, Pure and Simple, is essentially a beginner's guide, and so it's a very different contextual kind of environment. It's very, this is what Reiki is, and this is what it does, and this is the benefits, and this is how rudimentarily it works. Now, A Path to Freedom came really because there was 10 years in between the two books. And within those 10 years, I got to know more and more other teachers and students, and the proliferation of Reiki. And what I noticed was these belief structures that we were talking about, and these belief structures really starting to create a lot of tension within the Reiki community. So one school of thought says, this is how it works, and another school of thought says, this is how it works. And then these schools are fighting with each other. And you look at something like Reiki as universal life force, which is essentially what the name is. And then you've got all this infighting. And so A Path to Freedom is a look at what happens when you throw away all the rules, literally. And so what I'm inviting Reiki people to do, so this is a book written for Reiki people, though I have to say my father, who is not a Reiki person, read it and preferred it to my first book, which I found very interesting, because he had that same belief that actually if we open ourselves, we create more freedom in our system. So if we let go of the structures that says Reiki needs to be like this or this, then actually we open ourselves up to how is Reiki working within ourselves. And that is actually a much more interesting question. And it's a much more profound and magical question when you actually really sit with it, because for most people, the Reiki journey is an incredibly deeply profound spiritual journey. And so it's really taking the reader through that, and also looking at symbols and looking at the attunements that we do in Reiki from a kind of very a deeply spiritual perspective, and inviting people to look at these tools slightly differently and how it works in their lives for them. But the ultimate goal is that we get into the present moment and everything that we've been talking about before, that we focus on our own container and how we fill that to the brim so that it's just overflowing. And with that overflowing, then we can really be of service, right? We can't really be of service when our own container is not full and abundant. It's not possible. So looking at that aspect of service and looking at that aspect of really be serving life as opposed to looking at life, what can I get out of it? What can I get from life? What can I get from people? And instead looking at how do I serve this life that I'm in,
Yes.
but serving it purely because I have so much extra that it's just literally pouring out of me. There's nothing I can do about it. And this is a very different kind of service than often what happens, right? Whereby we're serving something so we get something, if we're really honest about it. And this kind of service that I'm talking
the
about,
merit making thing. No,
yeah,
and you do this and you get the merit, the kind of a thing. Yes,
exactly. I can scrub off some karma, and I can take this. And that kind of service. I mean, of course, it has its merit in a way, but it's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is just moving through life. Literally, I mean, if you can imagine, you're this container, and you're just walking through life, and you're just spilling out goodness everywhere you go. That's a kind of pretty cool way to live your life, I think.
Absolutely.
And with something like Reiki, it's actually very possible. It's very easy to do it like that because Reiki is an abundant force of life. So yeah, so that's what the book's about.
Wonderful, wonderful. Anyway, the book is on its way, so I can't wait to get it and read it and talk more about it.
Brilliant. I hope you enjoy it.
You know, Elaine, I want to, yes, I will enjoy it. Thank you for that. And it was such a beautiful session. It has been a beautiful session, and I am feeling absolutely blessed to have had you here with us. And thank you for your valuable time. And this is a precious interview, Elaine, and very memorable one indeed.
Thank you. Thank you so much, everyone, for staying on and listening to this chat. And thank you for inviting me. Thank you so much.
So, Elaine, I would like to halt this session for the time being, and because I typically wouldn't like to use the word end for some reason. So, because I believe it, I want to continue this particular conversation on another platform someday. So I'm halting this now, Elaine, and thank you so much for this honor.
Thank you.
And I'm wishing you a long, blessed, joyful life ahead, and more Reiki to yourself and everyone around you.
Lovely. Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.